0 Romeo Papa Tango, and I'm going to take my Netgear GS105E router, which I use on the broadband hamnet, split the VLANs. Just look at the lights flickering away in there. I'm not sure if the camera's picking that up or not, but this is currently in working mode at the moment. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to reset it, and then I'm going to run through the process of programming this up for 2 LAN ports, 2 nodes, and the internet access. Now, I'm not totally ready for this. On LAN port for node 2, I have a cable running into here, and that's where all my extra machines go in. The other end of that cable's there, and that distributes here. And this hub down here currently isn't doing anything clever whatsoever. So we're just going to sort this out for the broadband hamnet. Now, it is already configured. The configuration I've got my Raspberry Pi, which is actually in there, running asterisk, into LAN port 1, and everything else running into LAN port 2 via that switch down there. My 2 nodes, node 1 is the nano station, which I've tucked all the way down there because I was doing other experiments, and that was how I could cut its RF down. Plus, I don't have any of these antennas up in the air at the moment. And node 2 runs off to this, the AirGrid M2 HP. So that's the setup I've got. Now, I want to be able to... Oops, nearly dropped my camera. I'm going to want to be able to hook up to this. Now, you can't do it through the IP addresses that Broadband Hamnet give you. Or I've tried and it's never worked. So, I want to be on the WAN side of this, which on my network is the 192.168.1 range network, which runs up into my my BT Home hub here, and then down into the FTTC connection, which goes into my BT socket. And I'm going to lose communication with it if I try and connect my laptop on the broadband hamnet side of this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my connection out of this one, which is effectively running off of port 2, LAN port 2 of the that node there. I'm going to take it out of there, and to put it on the same network as this, the WAN port that runs straight up into my what I'll do out of shot, I'm going to run the reset on the factory default thingy, if it'll focus. Yeah, you just about read factory default. So I'm going to reset the box, and then the next scene that you'll see is me on the computer, my computer desktop display, showing how to configure this from factory defaults. Right, okay, so I'm on my computer desktop. I've just reset the GS105E, and now I'll need to load up the ProSafe Plus utility. And when you do this, it will have a quick look, see if it can find the router on the network, and it's seeing it in the 192.168.1.95 range. Now, if you see it in the 10 dot something range, then you might be on the broadband hamnet side or something. But let's go in, hit apply, and here you go. The switch and manager IP address are not in the same subnet. Okay, so what this means is I can't communicate with it because it's been assigned an IP address on the broadband hamnet, even though I've tried to access it on the local network, my home broadband network. So what I'm going to do now is go disconnect all the broadband hamnet equipment so it can only get the address from the broadband from my home broadband router, so it puts it in the 192.168 range. Now you might be asking, why don't I just plug my laptop into the range for the broadband hamnet range so I can communicate with it that way? Well, that'd be fine, but about halfway through I'm going to get disconnected and it's going to tell me the same thing. So what I do, I'm going to just stop this recording, and if I can, and then go disconnect all the broadband hamnet, the two nodes. I don't need to disconnect anything else, just the two nodes. So it goes to show, I was expecting a problem with the IP address, but you know, it just catches me out anyway. So we're going to leave this WAN port plugged in. Node 1 and Node 2 have DHCP servers on, which knock it down into the 10.range.range.range, and this one goes to my home router there, and that will put it in the 192.168.1.range. So let's pull those two out. I'll just leave them sort of floating around. Oh, that might fall down in a minute. Oh well, I might have to go fishing later. But okay, those other two DHCP devices have been disconnected. Now what I mean by DHCP is it's something that sits on your network and issues out IP addresses. Now you wouldn't want two on the very same network. Another reason we use these, separate the home broadband network from the broadband hamnet network. So that is on that port only. I'm going to pull the power out and plug it back in. Now that should start up. There you go. And effectively this is just a hub now. My Raspberry Pi might have been given a 192.168 range, and anything plugged into here, like my my file server might get a 192.168.1 range. But it doesn't matter at the moment. We just need this in the 192.168.1 range so that we can get it communicating with the ProSafe utility, because that ProSafe utility, even if you give it a broadband hamnet IP halfway through the setup, it's going to lose communication. So this is the way I'm doing it. And in fact, you don't need these in. I can unplug them. So it's just the one connection, and I always stick it on the end here, port 5, straight into there, and I don't need to turn it off and turn it back on, because I know that doesn't knock out DHCP IP. Nothing in those two do. It was only the nodes there that knock out broadband hamnet addresses. That one knocks out addresses for node 1, that one knocks out addresses for node 2. This hub there will knock out address for this unit, and we should be able to talk to it now. Okay, so I'm back on the PC. I've closed down the ProSafe Plus utility. Let me just minimize my screen recorder there. So I'm going to load it up again. I'm going to wait for it to find the switch. And here we do find it on 192.168.1.250. Now, okay, this was issued by DHCP, this address, but it's automatically picked the same address that I originally had it on. That's because my home broadband router, the BT Hub 5, sorry, BT Hub 3, I forgot, the BT Hub 5 they sent me doesn't work. It's not capable of anything more than 9 megs a second in either direction. Bit annoyed about that. But my good old BT Hub 3 it's working fine. I've peaked at 84 megabits down and 19.5 megabits up. So anyway, it's here now. So I best just get on with it. Highlight it and click apply. Now with the defaults, factory defaults, password is password, all in lowercase. Highly recommend that you change that. If you've got this thing about customer registration, there's no point. In my opinion, there is absolutely no point. I'll say remind me later, and then if I ever get rid of that switch and sell it on, someone else can buy it. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Switch name. I'm going to call it Broadband Ham Net -UK Router. Okay. And it clears it. Doesn't matter. Never mind. Let me try that again. Broadband Ham Net -UK Router. Hit apply without clicking anywhere else, and hopefully that will stay. Okay, so we've given it a name. What we do need to do, just go into management and monitoring, maintenance. Yeah, maintenance. We're going to change the password. I highly recommend moving any device that you have got that's accessible to other people, either over a network or physically, to give it a password. Change the default password. So I'm going to change that password. And just stutter my things so no one can listen to me typing and take a guess. I'm going to hit apply. Password changed successfully, which will kick you out. Now you have to connect back into this. We've done the password now. Hit apply. It'll ask you for the new password. Type in your new password and that should connect up, albeit a little bit slow. I'm not worried about communication with Netgear, it doesn't matter. It's retained the name and the IP address is still 250, although I am going to change that. If I go maintenance, no, network, no, I was here before. Somewhere in here you can fix the IP address. Okay, so click on there, so we're back to the beginning, and there it is down there, IP setting. Now I'm going to take it out of DHCP mode, disable that, and I'm going to give it 192.168.1.250, the usual subnet mask 255.255.255.0, and its gateway address I'm going to set as the gateway to the address of my home broadband router. That would be the gateway address that you see on your computers when they get an IP address from your home router. So, and I think I have to type in the password again. And then hit apply, which will again, it will kick you out. Just even though mine hasn't changed, it might have changed, so it needs to search for the router again. Highlight the router, hit apply, put your password in, and now it's configured. You've configured the IP address to always be, so it's always accessible from your home broadband router side. So if you ever load up this utility and you can't connect to it, plug your laptop or your PC into the home broadband router, and then load up this utility, and it will find it'll be able to communicate with it without any problems. Right, so we want to hook this up for a broadband hamnet. Now we're going to go into the VLAN tab here. Now you've got to make sure you don't just go past this. You must click on 802.1q and then you must click on advanced. Now anytime you go to this tab, always click 802.1q followed by advanced. Now advanced 802.1q VLAN we want to enable, and then we click yes. Okay, now what we have here is, now it's enabled, we have a VLAN ID 1 which is enabled on every single port. Now that would make it act like a switch. These VLANs, if you think of them like virtual cables inside the switch, they look at the data and say, okay, all data coming in, that is going to be VLAN 1 here, and that is going to be accessible on all ports, and the whole 5-port router is acting like a switch at right this moment. So we're just going to add some more VLANs. Now VLAN 1, 01 we use for the internet. Broadband hamnet does use VLAN 1. From your WAN port going to the nodes, it tags the information, and from your nodes going back to the WAN port to your home broadband router, it untags the information. But I will get to that. I just need to add some more VLANs. So I'm going to add 02, which is for device to device linking. I'm going to add VLAN 10 for node 1 and VLAN 20 for node 2. Now if I had a third node, I'd add VLAN 30 for node 3 and VLAN 40 for node 4, and just keep going up in steps of 10. Now that we've done that, I need to go into VLAN membership, and we've got the VLAN identifier. Now you can pick your VLAN 1, 2, 10 or 20. In my case I'm going to go to VLAN type 1, and it's going to be untagging the VLAN as it goes out to the home broadband router. So this one stays as a U. I have my node 1 plugged into port 3 and node 2 plugged into port 4. So on these ones they need to tag. Now any information from the internet comes in this port. Now it will get tagged as it goes to port 4, which is node 2, or port 3, which is node 1. And we don't want these ones connected, so we click them, so these two become blank. We've got the internet, so it comes in on 5, goes out on port 3 and 4 tagged, and any information for the internet on VLAN 1, which is to go to your router, comes in and gets untagged by the time it gets to your router. So I'm just going to apply that. It says I cannot remove port 1 from this VLAN. I must change the PVID. Absolutely, yes, very true. I did forget to do that. So I'm going to change the PVID. Now port 1 and port 3, there's the LAN port for node 1, and there's the actual connection, the port that runs to node 1. So I'm going to change them to 10 and hit apply. Okay. And it doesn't do it. Excellent. Apply. Port 1 is not so now I've made both mistakes at the same time. Okay. Now you'd think, oh, it won't let me do the first part because I haven't done the second part, and I can't do the second part because I haven't done the first part. Okay, well there is a way around it. It's infuriating, but I thought I'd show you. So, with the vLAN memberships, go to vLAN, and we'll do vLAN 10, okay, which is for node 1. Now, we want that untagged on the LAN port for node 1, and untagged for the connection that goes straight in to the node. So I'm going to hit apply there. Then I'm going to go to vLAN 20. Now this is for the LAN port, this is for node 2. So node 2 is plugged in here, and the LAN port for node 2 is here. So it's the same again, untagged on both. And I'm going to hit apply. Okay. So I'm also going to do the device to device linking, which is done on vLAN 2. Now this is always tagged. You do this on every node that is co-located. So vLAN 2, and it's always tagged. So I'm going to put a T in each one. Incidentally, when you click on these, they go from blank to untagged to tagged back to blank. So to get the one you want, just keep clicking. Okay, so 3 and 4 both tagged. That's vLAN 2. So anything vLAN 2 tagged is going to come in port 3. It's going to stay tagged. It's going to go to port 4, still tagged, and the other node will see this on vLAN 2, and node 1 and node 2 will be able to communicate with each other using the device to device linking that happens on vLAN identifier 2. So I'm just going to hit the apply. Now if I show you what the vLAN configuration looks like now, we've almost got this right. However, I need to remove these because this is still acting like a hub. Now it's not going to let me because of the membership, so I have to go PVID, and now we can set port 01 and 03 as vLAN 10 and hit apply, and it will work this time. Then I can do port 2 and port 4, which is LAN port and the port that runs direct to node 2, as vLAN 20, and hit apply. Now if you've got more ports, more nodes, you would do the same for the LAN port and the node port, so that node 3 is on vLAN 30, node 4 would be vLAN 40, and so on. So we've got this all right. Port PVID means that any device that isn't sending a vLAN tag already will be given this VLAN, so that the rest of the VLAN system knows what to do with it. So anything that isn't VLAN compatible, you plug your say old computer into port 1, then this router will treat it as VLAN 10, and effectively on this configuration it will be connected to port 3, which is node 1, so that it gets an IP address off of node 1 again with VLAN 10. So I hope that makes sense. The internet is dealt with on VLAN 1 for broadband hamnet, so we don't need to change port 5. Now that we've done this, we can actually go back to the VLAN membership and start removing some of these from VLAN identifier 1. So VLAN identifier 1 needs to tag the information from your home broadband router plugged into port 5, tag the information for node 1 and node 2. So let's remove those. and this is the internet side. 3 ports that are dealing with the internet. One takes the internet in and sends it to the 2 nodes tagged, and then the 2 nodes send the tagged internet information back through these ports, and they become untagged as they go out to your router. Remember, untagged is a normal network. It's just like plugging a cable in. There's nothing special. Tagged is an extra network that can run down a cable that is ignored essentially by most devices unless they support vLAN. Any tagged information, if it's tagged with a vLAN, it will ignore it unless it supports vLAN itself. So I'm going to hit apply now, and now that works. It's not complaining that we can't remove this because the PVID, it's saying it's not a member, because now it is a member. So VLAN identifier 1 for my configuration, port 3 tag, port 4 tag, port 5 untag. Now for the device to device linking, you only want the 2 nodes communicating with, or if you've got more nodes then you would tag those as well, and it would always be tagged on each node. There's no untagging involved. It stays tagged. It's for the device to device link, node to node configuration. So that's right. I'm going to hit apply. Now for node 1, we want to communicate with that via LAN, so we use VLAN identifier 10. Remember, any device that we plug in to port 1, if it's non-VLAN, like a PC or your server or IP camera or something like that, the PVID is set to 10 on port 1, so it will end up in this VLAN identifier. Now we keep these untagged. This is like plugging a network cable straight from this port into that port. So if you was plugging a cable straight into the back of your Ubiquiti node, you get the same effect. But if you do that, you won't be able to feed the internet up to it, and it would also need to use RF to communicate with co-located nodes, hence why we're doing this. Then if I go to VLAN 20, you can see the LAN port for node 2 and the actual port for node 2 is the same thing, so there's a similarity here. LAN port and node for node 1, LAN port and node for node 2. So I'm going to hit apply because that's all correct, and now if I look at the configuration, this will make a little bit more sense. So we have VLAN 1, which is associated with ports 3, 4 and 5. That's your 2 nodes and the WAN port, which runs to your router. We have VLAN 2, which enables the device to device linking between your nodes, so they're not screaming at each other, ignoring other weak RF signals. You say the more you can run down a cable, the better. In microwave networking especially, the quieter you are, the more you will hear. So if you can eliminate the crosstalk from co-located nodes, all the better. And then we've got VLAN 10, or a virtual cable for the LAN on port 1 and port 3. That's the LAN port for node 1 and node 1. Then you've got VLAN 20, you have the LAN port for node 2 and node 2 there. And that is that. That is the configuration. Now, once you're done here, use the quit button. Don't use this X up the top. Personally, I have never ever had a problem with clicking this X, but a little bit of reading up in some forums, they tell you not to do that because sometimes they were saying a residual process left in memory, so use the quit button instead. I've never actually experienced this problem. I've gone through all my processes and can't spot things, but I'll follow it anyway. It doesn't harm, so I'll hit quit. Right, now I'm going to go over to my back over to my my Netgear router and plug the ports in, and then I'll come back on this machine and I will show you how device to device linking is actually working now. Right, so I'm back to my router over here, and it's all been configured now. So we've got the LAN port for node 1, the LAN port for node 2, what actually runs to node 1, what actually runs to node 2, and this yellow cable here that runs into the back of there. Now, what I can do is I can plug in, I'll do it like this. Let's plug in the nodes first. So that's node 1 for me, and this one's node 2. So I remember I had two yellow cables together. Sorry, the light in here isn't very good. It's a bit, my test bench is a bit messy, and so these two nodes are already communicating with each other using device to device link. I'm pretty sure anyone who was trying to connect to my tunnel server, also my tunnel client, they're re-establishing their connections. Now I've plugged these back in, they'll re-establish the connection using the internet that is being fed by this port now. Now, this is my Raspberry Pi, tucked away in its box because I just didn't want the thing collecting dust. I have that on that port there. As I haven't got anything along the lines of quality of service, I run this device on its own node. That Raspberry Pi running the free PBX my asterisk server is running off solely off of that device, and I've lost a connection here somewhere. It was this cable that runs off to my switch to run everything else off of node 2, and now that's connected into there. So all of this should be working. Now, at the beginning of this, so that I didn't lose communication with this device by playing around with the VLANs, and I didn't want to do a load of port swapping to follow it around on the right subnet, I can actually plug my laptop that is in the other room back into here. And remember, this switch down here is just extra ports for node 2. There's my node 2 LAN connector, and that runs into that port there, and this is just providing extra ports off of that node there. So we're all plugged up, and back to my computer. Okay, so once again back on my laptop computer screen. I'm going to bring up a browser, and I'm going to go to local node :8080, which brings me to the first page of my node. And you've got to remember, this is node 2, because this laptop is plugged into the 24 port switch, and that 24 port switch is plugged into the LAN port for node 2. It's node 2 that comes up here. In fact, it's node 2 that gives this machine its IP address. So if I click on mesh status, we can actually see that we've got the connection up and running. The tunnel server and the tunnel client is working. The tunnel client is working, I know this because I can see many stations here located in America and other parts of the world, and I know that the tunnel server is up and running because I can see these. Now I'm not sure why, but this should say G4ELM-01. In fact, if I click it on it, it does say G4ELM-01. Now this is a tunnel client that actually connects to my tunnel server, so he's working. We're on the tunnel server here, and I can see my tunnel client there as a neighbour, but I can also see it here, dtd-link.20rpt tunnel client.local.mesh. So the device-to-device linking is working as well. In fact, if I click that, I can specifically pick the device-to-device link and go to 20rpt tunnel client. If I click the mesh status here, I can actually see the outgoing connection that this makes to Jim in United States. K5KTF is Tunhost v3 there. And of course on this tunnel client I can also see the device to device link back to the tunnel server. So I'll just go back to the tunnel server, we'll hit mesh status, and as you can see it's all working. There's just 2 other stations out there, mid2.20VHC nano station. His internet is not constant, it goes on and off because he's accessing through a BT open zone, so unless he stays up all the time just to log it back in once every hour, he disconnects. So that's why we don't have him as a server. He connects to me as and when he's brought his internet up. And we also, not to forget, N9MXQ gate. That's an incoming connection that I have from the States. I believe there is another path on his gateway, which effectively connects him back into the very same network that he was using, I think through ZL1FLYLG. It somehow loops back, but creating a loop within the broadband hamnet, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. If a loop won't crash the network, it'll only increase redundancy. So if it can't find one way around, it can find another way around, and this is good. So that's all there. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to go back to the tunnel server, and I'm going to call that job done. The broadband hamnet UK service, albeit sorry I took it down just to make this video. It is back up and running now, and that's how you program your Netgear GS105E router for use with broadband hamnet. Of course, all the other things that I mentioned about node 3 and node 4, again, if you've got more ports on your router, then yeah, remember each node should have vLAN 1 tagged, vLAN 2 tagged, and then say the node number multiplied by 10. So node 1 is 10, node 2 is 20, and so on. Just keep going up in multiples of 10. Untagged for the node, and then also 1 untagged to give it a LAN port. Or if you've got lots and lots of ports on your VLAN router, you can assign more than one of them ports. You can have multiple ports assigned as say VLAN 20 untagged, and they would be extra LAN ports to communicate with node 2. If they were extra ports that were on VLAN 30 untagged, then they would be extra ports for node 3. And that's it. I hope this does help. This is 2E0RPT with broadband hamnet in the UK. Hoping I can I hope that simplifies things. If not, don't hesitate to leave a comment. Thanks for watching.